Getting back to that terror point, in your outline in this section, you said how to surrender to the feeling of terror about being emotionally overwhelmed. I get to the stage where I feel as if I'm just touching on it, and it's as if I'm being suffocated or choked, and I'm ripping my clothes off, and I'm walking around, and that walking around, that pacing just takes me right out of it. I don't go any further.
That's right. Most of you need to sensitise yourself to the emotion of terror as an emotion, and it's going to take some time for you to do it, because you're so desensitised to it at this stage. It's like you haven't, most of you had no awareness it was even there, right? So you're going to have to firstly sensitise yourself to it. By having more and more of these kind of experiences where you no longer take the same action towards it as you have in the past. So I, for me, I had to lay on my bed and I just laid on my bed sometimes for hours.
I couldn't stay there. That was my problem.
No, you can stay there.
Yeah, yeah, true. Yeah, I didn't allow myself to stay there.
Yeah, you think you can't stay there, but you can stay there. Yeah. You see, and this is what you tell yourself: I can't stay there, so I get up. Straight away, you're out. You wanted to get out. So address the will. The will is saying, I want to get out of this. I want to get out of this. It feels too bad. I want to get out of it. Like if you're going to feel terror, you're going to have to want to get in it, right? And that's a whole lot of different. That takes a lot of will. You're going to need the development of your will. Like I've said next to here, you see it right over here on the board. The will is being exercised to refusal to be overwhelmed by the experience of terror and fear and grief. Desire to prevent pain, that's the exercise of the will. You need to flip that around, change the way in which you're exercising your will. So as soon as you get up and you walk around, pace around, you've exercised your will to avoid the feeling. The feeling has to come out of you, and the only way it's going to come out of you is by being experienced. So you've done the opposite of what is good for you. You think it's good for you.
Well, I'm feeling that I can't handle it. I can't breathe. I can't handle it.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Like I told you in my example, I've passed out a number of times from not being able to breathe, like through experience of terror. And I say a number of times, probably at least 10 times. And like that's how it is until you get, used to it.
Okay, so keep on. Just get myself back into that situation again, but stay on the bed. Don't get up.
Stay on the bed. Don't get up. Don't pace around. Stay on the bed. Feel it. Don't give yourself the outs that you normally give yourself. Stay with it as longer and longer and longer. Don't punish yourself when you get out of it. Go, there I went again. Got out of it against my own best interest. So next time I stay in this longer. Eventually you'll stay in it long enough that it'll start coming up, and you'll start going through the bodily sensations and all sorts of other things that are part of the release of the terror. And you'll know when you've done it because you'll probably sleep for at least one day afterwards or a long period of time afterwards. And when you wake up from that sleep, your body will be a lot more relaxed. You will feel quite different. And your attitude to your life will change substantially, and your attractions will change substantially. So you can measure how it's going, whether it's done or not. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, what I observe is that most people can't sit with the emotion of terror for a second, let alone a minute or an hour. Like, honestly, it's just, one of the things I've been talking about with Mary a lot is just sit with this emotion longer, darling. Sit with it longer. Stay with it longer. Like, the longer you stay with it, eventually you get to the point where you'll have it, right? Where you'll actually have it, the actual emotion. But if you can't stay with it, then that's your will being exercised to avoid it, right? And when you tell yourself, I can't handle it, there's your will being exercised to avoid it. You need to see it as your will. It's not, God made you to cope with any emotion. You can cope with it, right?
And I can keep on telling myself that, but it's not working.
No, because you're using your will to avoid staying with it, you see. And so it's just a matter of more trust in God, more faith that if I do this, it'll benefit me in the long run. Yeah. So your faith needs to be improved, your attitude to truth needs to change, where you accept God's truth, that this is an emotion, it's a multi-generation emotion, has to come out of me. God can help it take it out of me as long as I'm prepared to feel it. I've got to stick with it. I've got to feel it. I don't need to know what it is. I don't need to know how it got there. I don't need to know why it got there. I don't need to know where it came from, what generation it came from, anything.
I don't even go there. I just can't even stay with it at that time. Yeah.
I don't need to know any of those things. Every question I ask about it is a question driven by the desire to know. I don't need to know. I need to start telling myself, I don't need to know why it's there. I don't need to know how it got there. All I need to do is learn how to feel it. That's all I need to do. It's blocking me from my relationship with God. It's blocking me from my education from God. This fear in me governs my life. It governs my choices, governs my decisions. It dictates to me what I do every moment of my day. It's got to come out of me because it's killing me, literally killing me. It's got to come out of me. It's depressing my soul. It's squeezing my soul out of life. And it's going to do that. And while that fear is in you, whether you're in the spirit world or here on earth, that's what it's going to do to you. It's going to constrain your life, like bars, prison bars around your soul. Yeah, it's got to come out. And my feelings are, you've got to just let the process happen. And I don't know when and where you'll do that, because that's a personal choice and decision. All I know is you're going to have to do it. You're going to have to do it, particularly if you want a relationship with God. But even if you want any happiness at all, if you want any real happiness, you're going to have to do it. Yeah. It doesn't really matter where it came from and who put it there and all those things.
No, thank you. I'm just feeling it's one of my major problems at the moment.
It is, yeah.
And a few years ago, I didn't have any fear.
No, that's right. That's right. The majority, that's what I'm saying. It takes time to work through these. You work through these enough to see that that's there. And you've got to see it as there for yourself. It's no good AJ telling you, Jesus telling you that it's there. Like, if you don't feel it's there, then basically you're in denial from there down. And you're going to have to undeny yourself, reverse the denial. And then eventually, once you reverse the denial, you go, yeah, here it is. He told me about that years ago. Right? That I'd probably get to it at some point. And here it is. I can start feeling it now. Does that make sense? But everyone has it. Everyone has it. Just needs to go. Yeah. Bruce, you would like to ask? There's a mic coming back. Oh, the other one's. Yeah, either one's fine.
I'm getting the feeling that this terror, it's a clue for it. Seems for me is from my facades that I've generated. So I see that there's some characteristics of my facade that I can see in it. Yeah, there's a terror
underneath it
that it's protecting.
Certainly.
Yeah. Okay.
Certainly. The type of addictions you develop are very much dependent upon the type of terror that you have. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, they're all related, of course. And it's interesting that once you go through the emotion, then you understand yourself pretty well, hey? It's like, and you also understand other people pretty well too. Because the emotion of terror is what is desensitizing you to feeling other people's emotion, ironically. And the emotion of terror is what's desensitizing you to feeling your own emotion as well. You deal with the emotion of terror and all of a sudden you're a lot more sensitive to all the nuances of emotion, the different types of emotion that everybody has around you. And so now you can feel, that person feels like this now. I didn't realise that before. Because your terror stopped you from feeling what they felt. Does that make sense? Your terror is the thing that prevents you from being sensitive in your body. It prevents you from being sensitive sexually. It prevents you from being sensitive emotionally. It prevents your body from feeling its Just give an example. Like Mary can just sort of, she can not touch my back at all, just touch my spirit body, and I'll have waves and waves of like pleasure all over my body, just tingling pleasure all over my body, and she's not even touching my body. Right? Now, years and years ago, that didn't happen, but now it happens. So it's a sensitized, all of you can do that. All of you can have that experience. And it's a sensitization to your body, your physical body, your spirit body, and your soul that needs to be achieved. And that's only going to be achieved by releasing terror and pain. The more you release, the more sensitive you become. You also become sensitive emotionally. You become sensitive in the sense that you can no longer take actions that are unloving. Even if you thought there might be a personal benefit but it hurt somebody else, you'd never do it because you're too sensitive emotionally. You couldn't cope with the outcome of doing it. Does that make sense? You couldn't hurt somebody purposefully because you're too sensitive emotionally. It would hurt you even more than it hurts them. Right? So, yeah, there's a lot of advantages when it happens, but it's the terror and the pain that prevents you from having that really sensitive state. The more sensitive your state, the more pleasure you have the potential to experience. You also have the potential to experience more pain. But the likelihood of you experiencing pain is a lot less because you're in a loving state. So, like, celestial spirit's very sensitive to pain but doesn't experience any. Because they're sensitive to any emotion. But they don't experience any because everything they do, everything they say, all the actions they take are all in harmony with love. So therefore there's no pain to be experienced. There's only pleasure to be experienced at that point. But they're just as sensitive to pain as any other person would be who's opened and become as sensitive as well. In fact, they're more so because there's no terror in them anymore to prevent the sensitivity. Do you understand? The sensitivity, emotionally, physically, sexually, and in all aspects of your life is all about the amount of other emotions, pain and terror-based emotions that exist in your soul. The majority of women on the planet complain a huge amount about sexual response, right? Many women say they've not had orgasm very much at all, if at all. It takes them a long time to have an orgasm, all these other things. Well, that's all because of the lack of sensitivity to your body. Most women are very terrified of sexual response. They're terrified of those kind of things. So of course there's a lack of sensitivity. The norm for a woman is to ejaculate just like a man. That's the norm from God's perspective. But most women are desensitized from their bodies, and so they don't do that. Right? So there's a sexual sensitivity. Right? So most men are desensitized emotionally. Terribly emotionally desensitized. So, a woman might cry in a situation, but the man's there with a blank face and he's not crying at all. But he doesn't realise the effect it's having on his pleasure and the effect it's having on his happiness. The reality is that once you address that emotion and these emotions, the sensitivity levels will go way up there about all things. Emotional, moral sensitivity, ethical sensitivity, right? Physical sensitivity, spiritual sensitivity, sensitivity about love, sensitivity of other people's emotion. You'll know what they feel. They don't have to tell you what they feel. You feel what they feel better than they feel what they feel. Unless they are just as sensitive as you. Yeah. Are you worried about that? It's great, yeah, it is great. Honestly, why do you think celestial spirits experience bliss? Right? It's because they're very, very sensitive to happy emotions. Yeah. Which also means they have to be sensitive to pain emotions. But of course they don't experience any pain because they've brought their life into harmony with God's laws. And it's only when you sin that you experience pain. So because they no longer sin, they no longer experience pain, but they're just as sensitive to pain as any person.